Equality or independence is a phrase that is being repeated by a growing number of people who are fed up with the century-old relationship between Alberta and Ottawa. Many point to the fact that in 1905, then Prime Minister Wilfred Laurier created Alberta in a deliberate attempt to thwart the amassing of too much political clout in the massive Northwest Territories. The deal ensured that Alberta would always be a money pit for Ottawa. Laurier clearly knew what he was doing. For this episode of my series on Western alienation, I invited United Conservative Party MLA Drew Barnes to join me about the inequitable relationship Alberta has with Ottawa. Mr. Barnes, thank you for joining me. As I work my way through this 10-part series, I'm saddened as a fellow Canadian to see the level of frustration and anger that Albertans are feeling. How do you characterize where that level of frustration is at?
First of all, thanks for having me. Secondly, it's amazing in the last little while how many people that I've talked to that have given up on Canada, have given up on the way our political system works. You know, Albertans that just want to work hard, care for their families and their friends, want to take some risk in an oil and gas or agriculture or a diversified business, and are unable to do that. And you know, it's and they feel that things are out of their control, whether it's getting their government to listen to them, getting resource development to happen. And I'm a little concerned that you know, as we come through this COVID crisis, where this may end up.
It is remarkable that you say that people are starting to give up. Canada, after all, is supposed to be strong because of the collective sea to sea to sea relationship that we have. As an elected official, one that was elected within Confederation, does it dishearten you to see us at this point?
Actually, the opposite. I'm heartened and glad that it has, because to me, it's part of that Alberta culture, that Alberta resolve. We want to stand up. We want to be strong. We want to care for our friends and our families and our communities. And as we've shown, we're willing to share with the rest of Canada. Just let us be successful. You know, Southern Alberta, southeastern part, Cypress County, and Medicine Hat, which I'm grateful to represent, says so much. We're on the edge of the Palliser Triangle. And John Palliser was sent out here by the British government from 1857 to 1860. And one of his conclusions was that area was uninhabitable. And you look at what we built down there. We were the leaders in natural gas business, greenhouse business, agriculture business. And now we're in a situation, large part because of the rest of Canada, large part because of leadership in our political system. We have not been able to get our product to market. We have not been able to develop and share and pay taxes. And the frustration level is very, very high. Again, I'm listening. I'm hearing more than this than ever. And I believe this is an opportunity for us to push the reset button.
You are an elected member of the government of Alberta. You are a member of the United Conservative Party, and you sat on the Fair Deal panel. Can the Fair Deal panel address the issues that you have just brought up?
I believe so, but it's more than the panel. It's up to Premier Kenney, it's up to the leadership and cabinet, then it's up to our Canadian partners to do something with it. Now, the whole idea behind a large parts of the mandate letter and the Fair Deal panel was back to the firewall letter presented 20 years ago. And those were ideas, a lot of ideas that the province of Quebec already has, to show that Alberta can be more autonomous, to show that we can be more independent. Things like our own police force, our own pension plan, our own control of borders and immigration, collecting our own taxes. Some of these things are going to cost money in the short term. But what are they going to gain? What are they going to gain when the rest of Canada comes to negotiating with Alberta, when it comes to our important resource access, when it comes to how much equalization we pay? And Stuart, that's the other thing that just blows your mind. The number that kept circulating at the Fair Deal panel was as high as $30 billion a year. Alberta contributes to the Canadian Confederation in higher taxes, high unemployment, less diversification programs, equalization. And since 1960, the number could be $450 billion. You know, that money circulating in the Alberta economy would provide lots of diversification, lots of jobs, lots of great public programs. So Albertans are saying, hey, we went to work, we worked hard, and we shared, and now we're being blocked. And I think that's a large part of the source of the frustration.
When I look at the proposals that were outlined in the Fair Deal panel, I was a bit confused. I was under the impression the panel was going to lay it on the line to Ottawa. Instead, the proposals are to take control of taxation and establish a provincial police department to replace the RCMP. These are not cut the ties with Ottawa items. They're more along the lines of asking your parents if you can use the family car without having to ask permission. How does control of taxation and policing give Alberta greater autonomy if you're still tied into equalization?
You bet. Well, something like the police force will show the rest of Canada that if we choose to go it on our own, if we choose to embrace independence, we're ready. We've got one step to go further and take control of our own affairs. Secondly, the pension. Because Alberta has the youngest workforce with the highest income, we pay the most into the pension plan. And, you know, we can go through the numbers and how if you join now, it's likely to only pay you 2% return over all the money you contribute. But one of the people that went to the mics at the Fair Deal panel summed it up so well. He said the CPP doesn't provide for seniors. It has to be broken. And that's why Albertans like the idea of more benefits when they retire or lower contributions as they're working so they can have more control over their decisions. There's a whole, and so that financial aspect would go a long way to make us stronger. And then, you know, it's a situation where something like control of immigration, collecting our own taxes, just allows us to signal to Canada that, yeah, we want to be a part of Canada if we can be the freest and richest jurisdiction within Canada, but we need to have the opportunity to assert some independence and especially develop our economy.
So these are the building blocks, ones that move the dial, that should the sentiment towards separation continue to grow, then you have essential elements in place of self-rule.
Yeah, absolutely. They're building blocks. They're there. It allows us to assert our independence within Canada, but they're definitely building blocks. And you know, I think it's important that we have the discussion with our Canadian partners about getting our oil and gas to markets, getting our diversification built in our economy, and whether it's, you know, Laurentian elites controlling the current system or too much bureaucracy in Canada that's blocked us. It's time to accept that Albertans need the independence and the opportunity to live life to the freest and the richest.
I'm going to come to the environment in a moment. In the meantime, I want to touch on something that does not appear to be in the Fair Deal panel, that being, let us collect our own taxes. Do you anticipate that will be the next step? We'll collect our own taxes and we'll pay you rather than the other way around where you collect the taxes and then pay us back.
Right now, Quebec and Alberta are the only two provinces that collect their share of corporate taxes. Quebec has gone one further and they collect their share of personal taxes. Mm-hmm. During the last federal campaign, the Premier of Quebec was asking to collect the Canadian share of taxes as well. Amazingly, Andrew Scheer agreed to it and Justin Trudeau didn't. So, yeah, so I mean, that's it exactly. More of a European Union style Canadian Confederation where we decide what we send to Ottawa. Mm-hmm. You know, Ottawa being 2/3 of our taxes, they do not provide the services like the province, which provides health, education, and social programs. Municipalities provide, you know, 80% of your daily life, whether it's garbage or utilities, and they're a creation of the province. And here we have this big federal government that seems not responsive, isn't letting us develop our resources, but they're 2/3 of our tax costs.
This tug of war between Alberta and Ottawa is not new. Back in the 80s, then Premier Peter Lougheed seemed to have made some gains when it came to the energy sector, but he didn't factor in control over the environment. And has that not now become an Achilles heel for Alberta?
Absolutely, Stuart. That's it exactly. Albertans own the resources. We want to take the risk and be the most environmentally conscious jurisdiction anywhere, and we are. I hear it's like $7 to $8 a barrel of oil extra we spend because we are the most environmentally conscious. But because the environment was left as a shared responsibility between the provinces and Ottawa, we have the situation where Ottawa plays silly games and tries to control us by playing in the environment regulations. The carbon tax is the best example. I mean, it is more than frustrating and annoying. It's ridiculous when you look at the fact that America has reduced carbon emissions without a carbon tax, and us with a big carbon tax have actually increased emissions. And then you look at the tanker ban, where we can't put this environmentally, ethically safe oil in a tanker to help India and China get off coal and make the whole world better, and the C-69, where cement plants in Quebec aren't subject to environmental review, and all oil sands projects are. We have this bottleneck that has to be resolved, or I absolutely know that Alberta alienation, frustration, and independence desire will grow.
The last polling that I saw suggests 25% of the population of Alberta wasn't just feeling alienated, but was actually leaning towards cessation from the country. Do you anticipate that number will continue to rise, especially in light of the response from the East during or towards Alberta during the COVID-19 crisis?
Absolutely. And the Fair Deal panel reflected that too. About 25% of the people that went to the mic said, it's over in Canada, just get us out of here, get us the fairest deal you can. And another 55, 60% expressed empathy to that direction, knowing that if we can't get a fairer deal, including opening the Constitution for better Supreme Court shared seats and Senate reform, they want to review it. But yeah, I think that the change with that unfortunate incident in Nova Scotia and Trudeau's response to it, the fact that we're still not getting access for our oil and gas, the fact that Canada's gone billions and billions of dollars deeper in debt without us seeing the benefit of it in so many ways, is going to build to that. And again, when you see the number of us, Alberta, paying about $460 billion to the rest of Canada, more than we've received in benefits, and there's a lot of people that think that number is going to get worse and more magnified as all of Canada ages, because healthcare, of course, is one of the big costs of our public system. They think it's going to get worse, and I think that number could grow.
How is that possible? How can Alberta possibly contribute more, especially with the price of oil where it continues to languish?
Well, there's a lot of things there. First of all, before COVID, the demand for oil was growing in the world. It's approximately 110 million barrels per day, and all experts are expecting that to increase by 1 million barrels per day on an annual basis. And again, we have the third biggest oil reserve in the world. Just as an aside, I'm reading that the only country that came through the COVID crisis so far without totally destroying their balance sheet is Norway, because they have oil. Well, what the heck? We've got oil as well. And anyway, so there's also some rebound in the price of gas the last little while. And oil and gas, and we've got agriculture, we've got forestry, we've got other great industries as well. But it is such an excellent capitalistic business. As the price of oil drops, production slows down. So it makes the price start to happen. I filled my gas tank the other day for 54 cents a liter. Today it's 79. So so there's some responsiveness there. And I believe that Albertans, if we were granted free enterprise and access, those ups and downs would take care of themselves.
But therein lies the catch. You do not have free access to markets. You have one and a bit markets, mostly to the U.S. and a bit to BC, even though much of that oil that gets shipped through BC is already going to the U.S. And every time you attempt to ship that elsewhere through a new pipeline, you are being blocked. And I note with interest the shipment of the oil out of BC, via pipeline into Vancouver, onto a ship, and then it sails all the way around to New Brunswick through the Panama Canal. How does that make any sense? Add it all up, and I can't help but ask, how can Alberta generate revenues for oil to support the country that wants the money, but says it doesn't want the product?
It's one of the reasons that people promote the independence idea. If we were our independent country, we'd still be landlocked. I mean, landlocked is just the way it is. And we could maybe have a harsher negotiation position with British Columbia. You know, one of the things that still amazes me that Alberta didn't make more noise about it, when the Trans Mountain Twinning pipeline was first announced 4 or 5 years ago, the people of Alberta and Kinder Morgan at the time were going to pay the province of British Columbia almost $1 billion for access to put the oil or the gas through the pipeline. And it would have been the first time, Stuart, ever that one Canadian province paid another Canadian province a toll or a tax for transporting an economic good across their territory. So does BC want us to put out a toll every time they truck something from the Port of Vancouver across Alberta to the St. Lawrence Seaway? Is that the kind of country we want to be? And I don't believe so. And it's up to our leadership to solve these problems and make it so I can work hard in northern BC, I can work hard in southern Alberta, I can have prosperity for my family and my friends, I can pay my share of taxes so we can take care of the programs we need to take care of.
Are you pleased that despite the efforts of BC Premier John Horgan and successive mayors in the lower mainland of BC, that the Trans Mountain Pipeline appears to actually be moving forward?
It appears to be moving forward, but there's 3 concerns I have. First of all, the timing. Alberta families and companies are hit so hard. Thousands of bankruptcies. Just in Cypress-Medicine Hat, I've in the last month talked to 10 or 20 business people that have put hundreds of thousands back into their company, even before COVID. That is not sustainable. How much time do we have to play this game? And we've seen Prime Minister Trudeau, the federal government, have stops and starts with this pipeline all the way along the line. To me, the fact that 90 or 95% of this pipeline is in the same right-of-way as the existing pipeline, and it's taken so long, exemplifies what's wrong with Canada, the fact that, you know, we can't get this going. And at the Fair Deal panel, Stuart, one of the things that sticks in my mind a lot is 5 or 10 people that went to the mic and said they want that Trans Mountain Pipeline out of the ownership of the federal government. The idea being, if Trudeau decides again someday that fossil fuels are not the right spot in his playbook, why, if the federal government owns it, they can shut it off again at any time. Who can do business that way?
That's a good point. What you are talking about is uncertainty, which leads to a reduction in investment. So one of the ways to address those dropping levels of investment is through relations with First Nations. If we're talking about Western alienation, you have First Nations within Alberta, and many have done very well within the energy sector. But the legal reality is the relationship between First Nations is with the federal government. So what happens if Alberta gets to the point of separation? Do First Nations come with Alberta, and is it practical to even to consider an alliance between First Nations and Alberta?
It is very practical, consider it. I would hope that if Alberta ever got to that point, that First Nations would be full partners right there at the forefront, sharing in the opportunity, the prosperity, and the challenges. You know, there's so much wrong with the way Canada and the relationship with First Nations have been right from the start. This would be an opportunity to push the reset button. So if Alberta immediately just stepped in and took over Canada's role, I think it would be better for everyone.
Is there a good working relationship? Because I noticed that Premier Kennedy has worked hard to ensure the relationship between First Nations and the province is on solid ground. So therefore, do you believe this relationship can be strengthened and that together a better outcome for Alberta can be realized for everyone?
Absolutely. It's not only needs to be done, there's so much opportunity. There's a lot of wisdom in the First Nations people. There's a lot of business experience that would help everybody. And I would say the sooner the better. And yeah, too, I'm pleased with Premier Kennedy and the government's work so far on that.
How important will it be for those who are feeling alienated to see progress as a result of the Fair Deal panel? What if there's tremendous pushback from Ottawa and Eastern Canada? Will that incite or ignite an even greater sense of alienation?
Well, the COVID crisis, of course, has changed everyone's focus. But I think we're at the point where Albertans are wanting to stand up and talk and have more involvement in their political system, in their say. So I think this has to be heard. At the Fair Deal panel, it was amazing to me how many people went to the mic and said things like, even if we get resource access tomorrow, even if we get equalization changed, unless we get the Senate reformed, the House of Commons reformed, and the way Supreme Court justices are appointed, the West doesn't get its fair share compared to Quebec and Ontario, we could slip back and lose everything anyway. So yeah, let's take the hardship, the risk, and the time of opening up the Constitution, and let's get a fair deal. Many people, Stuart, have said equality or independence. How long their timeline is, again, with the terrible economy we've had, a lot of people have said their timeline isn't long, but you know, Canadians being Canadians, if there's progression, if there's positive success, I look forward to this. I look forward to the chance to let's grow our culture, let's grow our economy, and let's work together with our First Nations groups to make Alberta free and rich.
Let's hope that we do fix it, because I like this country. But I also understand the frustration that comes from playing with an entity that says, it's my bat, it's my balls, it's my rules, and I don't like how well you're doing within that system, so now I'm going to change the rules to ensure I win and you don't.
Albertans have put in the time, put in the effort. We had tens of thousands respond to a poll or put something online. We had town halls with 80 to 600 people, and a lot of MLAs held them in their constituencies as well, and they had good turnouts. And yeah, a lot of people put in the time and trouble to say exactly what they're thinking, and that has to be respected, that has to be honored. And 80% said Canada is either totally broken or partly broken. Let's fix it.
Thank you for joining me and adding further context to understanding the depth of frustration so many Albertans.
I too, you know, would like to stay in Canada and be a Canadian first. We got to get back to work. We have to be the freest, richest place we should be. And you know, when you look at the economic numbers now, with young men, 20 to 25% unemployed, and we're sitting on the third biggest oil reserve in the world, suffering under curtailment, production curtailment. It's just not right. It just doesn't match common sense.
Thank you for joining me and adding further context to understanding the depth of frustration so many Albertans feel.